A very early good morning to you from New Zealand as we approach the launch of another Electron mission from Rocket Lab Launch Complex 1 in Mähia. Right now we are counting down to Electron's 8th launch for the year and 66th mission, which is a dedicated launch for Japanese constellation operator iQPS. My name is Muriel Baker and I'm joining you from Rocket Lab's Mission Control Centre in New Zealand for this mission. Our liftoff time today has been set for 3:31 a.m. local time, and preparations for the mission have run smoothly so far. We're tracking no issues with Electron or range clearance in the lead up to launch. Now, today's mission is called the Mountain God Guards, and it's our latest launch for the Institute of Q-shu Pioneers of Space. Electron will be headed to a 575-kilometre low Earth orbit to deploy the next satellite in their constellation that provides synthetic aperture radar imagery. It's our 4th time heading to space for iQPS and the 3rd time this year, with the latest mission deployed a little over 3 weeks ago and another launched earlier in mid-March. We've got 8 missions on the books in total for iQPS, and while we're all about making space access routine, it doesn't mean our mission names have to be. And we've been working to a theme of honouring Japanese gods for each iQPS mission on Electron, depending on the nickname of each satellite that is determined by their orbital inclination. So today's satellite is known as YAMATSUMI-I for the Japanese god of the mountains who watches overall, a nice little tie-in to its Earth monitoring capabilities. And then last month's launch was the sea god Seas, and the one in March was for the lightning god Rains, all kicked off by our first iQPS launch called the Moon God Awakens. And you saw a little sneak peek at what our next mission patch will be for the next iQPS launch. So there you go, a little bit of mission patch trivia for today's mission. Right now, though, we are at T-minus 13 minutes and counting on the clock. The team is getting ready to launch Electron right on time for its scheduled liftoff at 3:31 a.m. And we've got liquid oxygen propellant continuing to flow through the vehicle's first and second stage tanks. Looking nice and full there from the frosty white buildup of ice on the outside of those tanks that you can see from afar. And very soon, our launch director for the mission will run through the go, no-go poll with the operators in mission and range controls. They'll check in with the launch director on everything from the payload status to the rocket's environmental conditions and its propellant tank levels through to whether the skies will remain clear at liftoff. And we are just a few moments away from that poll kicking off from mission control. Let's bring up the audio now and listen in.
To all operators, we are proceeding with the go, no-go sequence. Stage.
Stage is go.
Avionics.
Avionics is go.
GNC.
GNC is go.
VCON.
VCON is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
GC.
GC is go.
PLS.
PLS is go.
RSO.
RSO is go.
MET.
MET is go.
MM.
MM is go.
LD-SUP.
LD-SUP is go.
The go, no-go sequence is complete. We are T-minus 11 minutes and 24 seconds and counting. We are go for terminal count auto sequence at T-minus 10 minutes. From this time, the 3-word procedure is in effect.
All right, there we are. Exactly what we wanted to hear from the launch team. We are go across all stations in mission control and range control down in Mähia. We're not tracking any issues with the rocket or pad systems. iQPS's payload is healthy, and the weather has treated us well so far and is expected to keep doing so at liftoff, so no concerns there either. Everything is ready to go with the clock now at T-minus 10 minutes and 45 seconds and counting. Now, of course, there is plenty of preparation that takes place in the lead up to every Electron launch. Now, operations for this one began late last night that have obviously carried through to the wee hours of this morning. So let's take a look at what it takes to prepare our rocket for liftoff.
The countdown to launch is the most closely watched clock in mission control. Here are some of the things that take place at each milestone after the countdown begins. At T-minus 9 hours before launch, our crew are on site at Launch Complex 1 to configure the pad for launch and prepare to power on Electron for the day's operations. Meanwhile, our operators in mission control start checking in to their stations. At T-minus 7 hours, our operators will brief the launch director with a status update. Mission Control also receives its first weather check on what to expect at liftoff, including cloud cover and predicted wind speed at Launch Complex 1. Now, at T-minus 6 hours, our ground tracking stations begin to power up before Electron is prepared to go vertical on the pad. Soon afterward, Electron's Rutherford engines are tested with a short burst of engine fire to confirm all systems are operating as they should. At T-minus 5 hours through T-minus 3 hours, our range safety team runs through safety status checks for those on and around our launch complex on the Peninsula, making sure the team and the public are kept safe during the day's launch attempt. Fuel loading of kerosene will soon begin on Electron, while additional vertical systems checks take place and the pad is evacuated. It's T-minus 3 hours now, and soon liquid oxygen will begin to flow into Electron. As the rocket slowly fills with this oxidizer, Electron's black body turns white as humidity in the air around the rocket freezes into a thin sheet of ice due to the freezing temperatures of the liquid oxygen inside. With 1 hour left to launch, it's crunch time for our operators. Vehicle cameras are switched to their launch settings. Our avionics team enables Electron for flight. Our final weather brief comes through, and the range safety status will confirm that the area is clear for launch. With 12 minutes left in the count, our launch director runs the go, no-go poll with our operators to make the final decision to proceed with the launch. All final checks are completed before we reach T-minus 2 minutes in the countdown. At this critical point, the countdown auto sequence begins and Electron's flight computers take over. The launch director begins counting down to liftoff from T-minus 10 seconds before the engines ignite 3 seconds before launch, and Electron lifts off the pad at T0 on its way to complete its next mission with the satellites on board.
So obviously plenty of work is involved in getting every one of our rockets and its launch pad ready for its next mission to space. And every step of the way in that process involves a fantastic member of the Rocket Lab team. And if you'd like to join them, we are always hiring. So check out some of the jobs going in launch operations on our website, rocketlabcorp.com. Come help us launch even more missions like this one. There we go. That's the strong back you can see retracting from Electron there in preparation for launch. Now, after today's mission, we have another 4 missions for iQPS launching on Electron this year and next. And each one is to deliver the latest QPS SAR satellite to orbit that will build out the company's synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, Earth imaging constellation. Now, SAR works a bit differently to other satellites that take pictures of Earth. The radar in synthetic aperture radar describes how the satellite sends out radio waves from space and listens for the echoes that bounce back from Earth. And surfaces like forests, buildings, and water reflect those waves differently. And the satellite and its constellation collects those measurements to stitch together one large, clear picture. Now, SAR is particularly useful for being able to see, even at nighttime or through clouds, for consistent coverage over a specific area. And iQPS is planning for a constellation of up to 36 of these SAR satellites in total. And it's great to be able to support them to build it out over 4 missions to date, the ones to come, and of course, today's launch of the Mountain God Guards. And we are all about delivering trusted and reliable access to space for small satellite operators, especially for constellation developers like iQPS, because building out a constellation requires control over when a satellite is launched and where it's being deployed to, so that the constellation can really be fully optimized for the mission, and that's exactly what Electron was created to provide. Now, demand for that has grown across the industry, and our Electron launch cadence has really picked up as a result. 2025 is shaping up to be one of our busiest launch years ever, and the launch site at the centre of that, of course, has been Launch Complex 1. Now, our launch site features 2 launch pads, Pad A, where Electron will be taking off from this morning, and Pad B, right next door, which is where our next mission will fly from. The dual pad setup is all about minimising the pad recycle time that's needed between launches from the same platform. So with 2 launch pads on site, we reset one while we launch from the other, which is what makes the possibility of back-to-back missions so good. Now, our quickest turnaround yet, though, happened to be not from these 2 pads at LC1, but from LC1 and our Launch Complex 2 site on Wallops Island, Virginia, where we flipped 2 launches within 24 hours from opposite sides of the world. Now, our pad for Electron missions and hypersonic test flights on our HASTE rocket is located within the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport on Virginia's eastern shore, and is set to see plenty of action in the months to come too. And of course, there is our brand new launch site for our new rocket Neutron, positioned right next door to Launch Complex 2, that's set to be completed and officially opened soon ahead of Neutron's debut flight. Today, though, it is Launch Complex 1's time to shine yet again as we get closer and closer to that T0 liftoff time on the countdown clock. So now just over 3 minutes away from launch, and we are about to enter terminal count at T-minus 2 minutes. And that's when all of the final vehicle and pad systems checks are conducted by Electron autonomously. Our launch operators will voice those checkouts across the audio channels along the way. So let's turn the volume up and listen in as Electron rolls through the countdown.
All as good as a green.
To all operators, we are go for auto sequence start at T-minus 2 minutes.
And LD is go for launch.
The vehicle is fully on internal power. AFTS is green and enabled for flight.
LOX load is complete. System is in recirculation. Anti-geysering is disabled. Stage 1 and 2 tanks are pressed for flight.
High flow engine purge enabled.
T minus 20 seconds and counting. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
Beginning pitch off.
Stage 1 propulsion nominal.
We are on our way to space for iQPS, a beautiful ascent from Electron, clear against the night sky for its 66th launch. Now watch as those speed and altitude dials continue to climb up as we come up against maximum aerodynamic pressure shortly. We're now at T plus 53 seconds and counting into flight, so that call out for max Q should be heard soon across the nets.
Cleared max Q.
That's max Q confirmed, and Electron is continuing nominally, now about a minute or so away from staging, and MECO on the first stage. So we're going to see all 9 of those Rutherford engines on the bottom of the first stage shut down, and then very quickly after that, the first stage will be released by the separation locks on the vehicle. Straight away, we should see the second stage Rutherford engine light up to push Electron and its payload away and onward to orbit, just a few moments away from that now.
Stage 1 propulsion holding nominal. Stand by for MECO in roughly 30 seconds.
"15 seconds to staging." Entered burnout detect mode.
MECO confirmed.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 2 ignition confirmed.
That is a healthy Rutherford engine startup on the second stage now that we are clear of first stage MECO and stage separation. Electron's altitude now is sitting at over 95 kilometers above Earth, boosting along at more than 8,000 kilometers an hour. And everything is going very well so far for this mission. Now, up next is fairing separation, when the 2 halves of Electron's nose cone separate and fall away. And that should be coming up very soon now.
Fairing jettison confirmed.
HVB discharge holding nominal.
Exactly as planned, there goes those fairing halves from Electron, and hello to QPS SAR 11 on your screen there, safely integrated to the kick stage on top of the second stage as it continues on to our 575 kilometer target orbit. We've got just under 5 minutes or so of engine burn time for this stage 2 Rutherford left to go, and it takes absolute precision and control from our guidance system for the second stage to keep it on the path to orbit. And our engineers have to take into account the Earth's rotation, the forces of gravity, resistance against the vehicle, and the angle it should be oriented to carry the kick stage to a nominal transfer orbit. Now, Electron is programmed to make any adjustments needed along the way, but so long as those two lines on your screen for our planned and actual trajectory are closely aligned, then the mission remains in the clear. One of the next actions coming up on the second stage will be the battery hot swap. Now, because the length of the engine burn for the second stage, the batteries that power the propulsion system need to be swapped halfway through, with the hot in the name battery hot swap coming from the fact that the engine continues to fire while that happens. Now, when the switchover is complete, we should see the first set of battery packs eject from the second stage, so let's watch out for that now.
HVB discharge holding nominal, approaching hot swap in roughly 30 seconds.
Throttling down. Battery jettison confirmed.
Confirm hot swap successful.
A seamless battery hot swap there for the Rutherford engine, continuing on bright and beautiful past 240 kilometres in altitude now. And we've got about 2.5 minutes left in this engine burn before the second stage reaches the nominal transfer orbit to separate the kick stage.
HVB discharge holding nominal.
The trajectory that Electron is travelling along right now will carry the second stage and the kick stage to an elliptical orbit of Earth. And this serves as a staging point for the final orbital insertion that is needed from the kick stage to place the iQPS satellite on a circular path. But before the kick stage can do its thing, it needs to be separated and sent on its way once the second stage closes out. And we're still a few moments away from that shutdown, but it is coming up shortly. All right, not long now until SECO and stage separation for this mission. And the process for both is much the same as what went down with Electron's first stage separation and main engine cutoff. Only this time it involves shutting down the Rutherford you can see on our screen for second engine cutoff, and then separation of the kick stage from the second stage. Now, that second stage shutdown is a carefully controlled and planned event to make sure that the kick stage's velocity and position are exactly where they need to be for the next phase of the mission. And we can expect to hear 1 or 2 callouts from Mission Control as they monitor the guidance systems for that. Let's listen in now.
SECO confirmed.
Stage separation confirmed. Nominal transfer orbit achieved.
Great call out there from Mission Control. That is SECO confirmed for the second stage, with the kick stage now successfully separated to its transfer orbit with the QPS SAR 11 satellite for iQPS. Both have a bit of a journey ahead of them as the kick stage and the satellite go for a coast around the Earth before the kick stage can ignite its own propulsion system to perform the final maneuvers that place the payload on orbit. So we've got about 40 minutes or so until that takes place, but we are not done yet. We're going to take a bit of a break now, so go and grab a coffee and enjoy the relaxing tunes of our good friend Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. And I hope I'll see you back here to close out the mission with payload deployment soon.